On today's Locked On Texans podcast, draft coverage continues with another NFL draftee hopeful, and the Houston Texans drop their own mock draft. Are they foreshadowing what's to come this upcoming Thursday? We'll dive into that on this episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. But first, Cody, start the week off right.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to a Monday edition of the Locked On Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman, joined by none other than Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. Cody, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the draft is this weekend, right? This Thursday. And you know what? I want to shout out to everybody at the NFL on the NFL channel for Locked On, grinding, working tirelessly to cover the draft the best way they can. And we continue with our draft coverage here today with Raheem Blackshear, running back out of Virginia Tech. That's going to be a very interesting conversation. But before we dive into that, speaking of the draft, if you guys follow the Houston Texans on Twitter, that you may have seen it. If not, I definitely want to let you guys know to go follow, the Houston Texans on Twitter at Houston Texans. They released their own mock draft with number 1 overall, Aiden Hutchinson. We don't pick number 1, so that doesn't matter. But number 2 overall, Travon Walker. We don't pick number 2, that doesn't matter. But number 3 overall, Ahmad Gardner. Followed by at 4, Kevon Thibodeau, 5, Evan Neal, 6, Malik Willis, 7, Derek Stingley, 8, Ike Ekwonu, 9, Jermaine Johnson. Happy to see the young man crack top 10. He has an uber amount of talent. 10, Garrett Wilson, 11, Jameson Williams, 12, Trent McDuffie, and once again, we draft at 13, wide receiver Chris Olave. I want to look at number 3, Cody.
Of course you do.
You know it. But for the Texans drafting 3 overall, is this foreshadowing?
I think so because
is Mac Main a fortune teller?
When I go back to Nick Caserio's press conference, he talked about how this is not going to be, let's say, a Lovie Smith pick or a Pep Hamilton pick or a Nick Caserio pick. He said that this is going to be a Houston Texans pick. However, he did mention that, of course, as the head coach, they're going to heavily consider what Lovie Smith's need and what Lovie Smith actually kind of wants. And when you go back and you take a look at another press conference that Lovie Smith had, I think it was like 2 weeks ago at the start of voluntary OTAs, Lovie Smith came out and said that he did not have the cornerbacks in order to run his defense. Now, look, I've been around Lovie Smith for almost a year now, going back to him being a defensive coordinator for this team. And there's one thing I will say about Smith. Smith is one of those guys where he's going to make it known when he needs something to be done in order to run not the Texans defense, his defense. And right. John, once again, when you take a look at that number 3 overall pick, you take a look at the top 2 defensive back, the top 2 corners is either Sauce or Stingley. I like Stingley, I did, but there's just too many questions surrounding him right now. I think as of right now, when you take a look at Sauce Gardner, he is going into the draft with a lot of momentum. You talk about a guy, and you was on this train first. You're talking about a guy who did not allow a touchdown through his entire college career. That young man has a lot of potential, and that pick right there at number 3 just makes too much sense for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, and I think one thing that separates Gardner from Stingley is not talent. It isn't ceiling, because I think their ceiling is super high as well. It isn't potential, it's availability.
Yes.
And we've seen more of Gardner than we've seen of Stingley. And I think Stingley is an amazing athlete. I think he is a great corner from when he was healthy on the field at the collegiate level. But when you look at Ahmad Gardner, when he checks every box, and this is a franchise that has historically been unable to draft cornerbacks and have great cornerback play from the players that they drafted. The greatest cornerback in Texan history was a free agent in Jonathan Joseph. So I look at this, and you look at where Nick Caserio came from in New England. They have traditionally had good corners. You look at what Lovie Smith mentioned he wants a good corner. This is a team that I don't think really is playing to what people want, and that's to be terrible to have another top quarterback trying year next year's draft or whatever the case. I think they want to be competitive and win some games. To do that, I need my players on the field, and if there isn't a worry or a question mark on whether or not you'll be able to play on the field based off your past resume, then you take the best player, and that best player has also been available as well. So I like Sauce Gardner at 313 for me with Chris Olave. Listen, I don't think drafting a receiver is out of the question for Houston. They've commented several times how they have to build around Davis Mills, which is important. I get it. I understand. And when I rumble off the top two wide receivers taken at 10 and 11, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams. So they're already off the board. I think Chris Olave, who I believe is better than Garrett Wilson, by the way. But I think that if you want to fill that wide receiver role, then yes, you do go with Olave. I think he's a technician at wide receiver. I think he's a wide receiver that can run every route fluidly, and he does have top-end speed, right? So that is plus, and he has good hands. Then I will also look at 13 because we addressed this last week. Why would anybody want to draft a right tackle or left tackle and move them inside, right? We talked about Ekwonu. We talked about Evan Neal, and why I think if you're going to draft those guys and move them inside immediately, that'll be a fail. But we understand and we have looked at the need for interior guard play and upgrade. Well, I would look at a Zion Johnson at 13. And the only reason why I wouldn't go with an edge rusher at that point is because at number 9, based off what we're looking at, the Houston Texans mock draft, number 9, Jermaine Johnson is off the board, who I think can also have as great of a career of what we're projecting than an Aiden Hutchinson or a Kevon Thibodeau. So, and I've been blown away by Jermaine Johnson since the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, went back and watched some full tape on that young man. Listen, guys, if the Houston Texans are able to land Gardner and Johnson, even Gardner and well, they're both Johnson, Zion or Jermaine, then you guys have to understand they are getting the two best players at their position, unquestionable, especially with Zion Johnson. So 13 is where for Houston they can look to trade it, they can look to address wide receiver or an edge rusher, but I do love the number 3 overall pick because I've been loving it the last couple of months.
Yeah, and 13 could be on the move. We actually heard that from Nick Caserio last week during his press conference. I believe it was last Thursday. But John, look, if the Houston Texans do keep the number 3 overall pick and 13, and they come away with Sauce and Olave, that will be a huge win in the first round for your Houston Texans.
Absolutely. I want to let you guys know about Athletic Greens AG1. It's a lifestyle-friendly product. Whether you eat keto, vegan, dairy-free, and is gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything while still tasting good. Supports better sleep quality and recovery. Supports mental clarity and alertness. It's one thing with the best thing. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with third-party product iteration production. One thing that I love about it is it's not expensive. It's very cost effective. It costs less than $3 a day. You're investing, in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit, and I have a cold brew habit. I love to toss a beer back and watch the game. And I tell you what, getting up in age, and I want to have more mental clarity, and I want to be more alerted. I want my alertness to be at an all-time high. So I am investing in AG1 by Athletic Green, and I really think everybody who's checking out the Locked On Texan podcast, I tell my friends about it. I tell my family about it. This is the one product that I truly believe in. And to make it easy, Athletic Green is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thanks for making Locked On Texans your first listen every day. Big announcement. For the first time ever, Locked On is hosting live coverage of the 2022 draft from our studios in Dallas with pick-by-pick analysis from our local team experts and draft gurus. Tune in all 3 days as our draft team guides you through every pick and every trade in real time. It all starts on Thursday, April 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Available on Locked On NFL, YouTube, and the Odyssey app. Welcome back, Locked On Texan fans, viewers, and listeners out there. Today is Monday, and we are continuing each day-to-day step by interviewing and having conversations with the NFL draftee hopeful, the prospects that have been busting their asses since high school. And it's no short of today. Welcome to the Locked On Texan podcast. Raheem Blackshear, Virginia Tech, VTech, what's going on, man?
Man, I can't complain. You know, man, I'm blessed. I'm excited for the draft.
Yes, sir, Raheem. Before we get started, the draft is this Thursday. How does it feel to be so close to being drafted into the NFL? Because I'm pretty sure this is something that you have been training for, working for, praying about ever since grade school.
I mean, it's definitely unreal, you know. I've been working my whole life for this. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, it's God's plan for me. You know, I'm blessed. I wake up every morning, I'm grinding. So it's my hard work going to pay off.
Yes, sir, Raheem. You know, part of the reason why you're in this situation today is because you were able to establish yourself as one of the top Swiss Army knives entering the 2022 NFL draft as a running back who can excel both in the passing game and in the running attack. And some people actually compared you to Deebo Samuel. So everyone knows what it means to be a Swiss Army knife for a team. We all know about the game planning, but can you talk about the benefit of what it means to be a Swiss Army knife from a player standpoint?
So me personally, I feel like, you know, defensive matchups, you know, you're creating problems all over the field. So I can play outside, inside receiver, and also me motion out as a running back as to a slot receiver will put me in one-on-one with a linebacker. So it's kind of confusion for defenses. So just being able to be all over the field, also on special teams, it's just like you getting a 3-for-1 deal.
You know, coming out of Archbishop High School out in Philadelphia, you had offers from Syracuse, Temple, other programs. And when it comes to the spotlight, because when you get those big name offers in high school, you're going to be in the spotlight. Your neighborhood, your family, your friends, the whole nine. But when it comes to that spotlight, it always seems like you've been there. But that can kind of diminish your journey. Can you let us know and open up a little bit about your journey going from Rutgers, starting your collegiate career at Rutgers, ending off at VTech, and then getting ready for the NFL?
So, you know, I grew up in Philadelphia. So I'm from Philly. You know, we all hard-nosed, you know, players. So we all know it's never going to be given to us. So one thing we always knew, we had to grind for everything. So I ended up going to Archbishop Wood High School. I had a couple good years there. I had Mark Webb, you know, and also Kyle Pitts on my team. So we had they said we had like a bomb team. You know, they said we was a cheating team, but, you know, we all live around the same neighborhood. So we all transferred to Archbishop Wood. So we get a better education, whatever, you know, won a state championship. And I got all the big school offers, you know. I was committed to Michigan State. Then it was just like, I'm going real far from home. And I wanted to be close to my parents and everything so they can come watch me play. So I ended up going to Rutgers. Had an amazing first couple years there. Ended up transferring to VTech. And, you know, just the rest was all written from there. You know, it was just time to ball. And VTech, I feel like, set me up to be ready for the next level.
Now I hear Philly all in your voice. I got a couple of friends from Philly, and then of course we love Meek Mill down south,
Yeah.
like everybody else loves him. Who's on your playlist right now as you get ready day to day, getting prepared to work out, going through the training process? Some of your top artists on your playlist that kind of help you get ready for the day.
So, I always start off with Meek Dreams of Nightmare. We from Philly, so I gotta play that.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure I wake up and get that going. I got a couple local guys like Quilly Mills. I got a little baby. And I'm real life. I'm a smooth dude, so I like R&B. So when I'm in my, by the weather of the storm, I'm listening to R&B. I'm real smooth. You feel me?
Awesome, man. I love those musical choices. You mentioned that you had committed to Michigan State, but you decided to decommit and go to Rutgers, to be close to the family. So I understand you was the one who actually put in all the hard work on the field and the training room. But can you just talk about the people that actually help you get to this point where you are today?
So me personally, I'm always gonna say my mom and dad. Without them, I wouldn't be in like the predicaments I'm in. Penning me through Catholic school and everything. I have a girlfriend, who pushed me every day. So without them, it would just be hard for me. I got my best friend. You're going to school to be a doctor. So we all been level-headed. So we all been on the right track.
How were you able to stay motivated during the 2021 season with, if we can be honest, an inconsistent defensive play? And I know it was even harder with a middle of the season firing of head coach Justin Fuente. How difficult was that for you? And then how were you able to stay motivated?
I feel like it's very difficult for a team. Your coach getting fired early in the week before a game. It was difficult, but we all try to handle it like a pro. So we was a player-led team, I feel like. So just having like that captain leadership that we just had to keep pushing forward.
In terms of the NFL, you got to get on the field. You want to get on the field. You want to do whatever you can to get on the field. How important is this special teams game to you?
So the special team game will be real big, just being able to play kick return, punt return, able to run down, punt block. I feel like just showing my versatility in any way possible to keep you on the team for as long as possible.
Raheem, one thing I noticed about you since we started this interview is you seem like a real humble guy. And, my next question...
Even with the trophies back there, right?
Yeah, even with all the trophies back there. One thing I noticed about you, man, you seem like a real humble guy. How are you able to stay so grounded, especially considering, like John pointed out, you got all the trophies back there. You have people, entering the draft comparing you to Deebo Samuel, and you're talking about one of the most versatile, best players in the game today.
So me personally, I just stay grounded. I pray a lot. I trust in God's plan. My parents always tell me stay level-headed. And I really don't get into the hype, So one thing about me is just like I'm big on God, I'm big on my faith, and I know in one chance, one opportunity, you can just lose everything. So one thing I always stay humble and give everything you got.
I do want to circle back real quick to you mentioned that you decommitted from Michigan State, one of the biggest schools in the country in terms of the production that they put out there and being in the Big Ten, because you wanted to be closer to home. Now with the NFL, you have limited options. You don't have a lot of these programs, universities. You have 32 teams. Let's say you are drafted by the Houston Texans, i.e. Locked On Texans, or we're talking about Deebo Samuel, who has mentioned he don't necessarily want to be in California. Let's say you go to Cali or Atlanta or Florida. How will you be able to balance that?
So, personally, I know my family is one thing about them. They're always going to travel to my games. So one thing I always know, my family, as long as I got them come to my games, I'm big excited. My girlfriend going to be coming with me wherever I go. She got a remote job. So my life, is gonna be pretty good. So I should be blessed wherever I get decided, wherever I go.
I see a lot of, as we mentioned, trophies back there, and it seemed like there's more than one sport. I don't know if that's like a volleyball or something back there. So can you just talk about if you had an opportunity to play other sports and how were you able to excel in that as well?
So I played every sport except for hockey. So I played baseball, football, box, soccer. So I feel like my parents put me in every sport, to be, the best athlete you can be. So I got a couple, first place medals, a couple basketball trophies. They be hating on my basketball skills, but I was all right.
Basketball trophies. You say you played every sport. What is it about football that drew you to it that has you on the cusp of starting an NFL career?
So my older brother was a linebacker, and we always played football on the block. I was always the fast kid, and I always wanted to be the toughest. I wanted to be just like my big brother. So just being around him, seeing him hit people, and I was like, this is a way for me to hit somebody and not get in trouble. So I took advantage of it.
At any point, have you ever considered just walking away? Maybe you got difficult, dark times that other people may not know about, or maybe an injury. At any point during your playing career, did you think that maybe this isn't for me? If so, how were you able to overcome that thought?
So me personally, I pray a lot. So, it'd be them hard times. I had a couple of deaths in my family, recently, not too long ago. It was hard, but it was just sometimes you got to know how to put your head down and just believe in God, just keep pushing through it. So that's one thing that always motivated me. I got my family on my back. I got my city on my back. So I just keep going.
One of the things I realized, Philly kid, you're talking about a city that produced some of the greatest athletes that we have ever seen. They produced one of my favorite athletes in Allen Iverson. So can you just talk about some of the people within Philly that you actually had an opportunity to grow up with? Other than your brother, it could have been like someone you saw on TV, other kids in the neighborhood, like I say, the city of Philadelphia has a lot of great athletes.
So, DeAndre Swift is one of my great friends and everything like that. We look at each other like cousins. Mark Webb for the 49ers is not for the 49ers, for the Chargers. That's my best friend. Kyle Pitts, we all worked out. We trained when we was young, training together. And I feel like we just been grinding together. So we have been having fun since we was kids. And this has been a game that we've been going hard for.
Last question before getting out of here. NFL draft is on Thursday. Pretty sure you're excited.
Yeah.
If an NFL scout runs across Locked On Texans, they see your name, they listening to the interview, they like everything that they hear so far. If there is one pitch that you can make to that NFL scout, what would it be?
The one thing I'm going to say is that you're getting a player going to come every day to work. You're getting a versatile player. Well, I always say, why go get a running back and a receiver? You can have a running back that can do it all. But one thing I would say to him is that come get somebody that can do everything that you need. So that's my pitch for him.
I'm assuming you've mentioned family a lot, remote girlfriend, your mom, they travel. I'm assuming y'all going to be at home in Philly for the draft, right?
So I'm going to have a draft most likely in probably like New York. I'm going to be around my family, wherever I get my name from.
Yeah. Okay. So who cooking though? That's what I want to know. What's on the menu?
So my dad's gonna be throwing it down, most likely. Get some fried chicken going on, man.
Okay.
I gotta get one cheat day in, so hopefully I get a little cheat day. Then I'm back to eat healthy and clean.
Okay, Daddy with the fried chicken, man. Thank you for stopping by Locked On Texans podcast. We really enjoyed it, and hopefully with all of those trophies back there, you will be able to add an NFL jersey to it as well this upcoming weekend. Before we get out of here, where can everybody follow you on Instagram, Twitter, your social media, anything that you're comfortable putting out there?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Heem__2, and my Twitter is Speedy_Heem. Man, it's gonna be a fun future. Y'all gonna enjoy it.
Make sure I'm gonna go ahead and do that follow on Twitter right now. Speedy_Heem.
Yes, sir.
You can follow back too, brother.
Make
sure I follow back.
I got y'all.
Raheem, thank you so much for stopping by Locked On Texans, man. Good luck with everything. Hopefully we have an opportunity to do this again, man. We be rooting for you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
I want to ask you guys a question, and that is, have you tried the Puffs by Built Bar? If you haven't, you're missing out on Built Bar's best tasting bar, one of their best tasting bars. The Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they are a treat, and they're also covered in 100% real chocolate. All bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, including the Puffs. 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Go to Built.com, scroll down to the macros chart. You may be blown away. High protein, low calories, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bar contains 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually carries around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and a dozen of net carbs. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making Locked On Texans your first listen every day. Make sure you are continuously listening to the Locked On Texans podcast throughout the week. to hear the process from all of the NFL draftee prospects that we have lined up for you guys on our show. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, with this Monday installment of Locked On Texans. And look, the NFL Draft is going to get kicked off on Thursday. I can't wait for it. And John, in the first segment, we talked about the Houston Texans doing their own mock draft, and they came away with Ahmad Sauce Gardner at 3 and Chris Olave at 13. One thing I love about the NFL Draft, you see a whole bunch of mock drafts. And John, over the past week or so, I've seen a couple mock drafts that had Aiden Hutchinson fall outside of the top 2. I've seen the Jacksonville Jaguars take Ike Ekwonu. I have seen the Detroit Lions at 2 pick either Sauce or Malik Willis. If the Houston Texans have an opportunity to get their hands on Aiden Hutchinson at 3, do you or do you not see them pulling the trigger on Hutchinson?
Man, I can't answer that. I can't answer that because we don't truly know where Houston has him ranked right now on the draft board. So just like we do mock drafts, just like we go do simulations and, different websites, we can have fun and spark our own conversations. NFL teams have their own draft board. And with those draft board, and I can't recall the exact conversation, but I do remember a conversation where Nick Caserio talked about players that they may really like. They just know that they won't be available by the time that they pick, right? And I go back to where, not Christian Barmore, because the Patriots drafted him, but Jonathan Allen, that was drafted by the Washington Commanders, was working out, and Bill Belichick was there, and he was like, "Bill, I would love to be a Patriot." Bill looked at him and said, "So you're not going to make it to by the time we pick." So I say that to say that, don't know how important or where Houston ranks him as a player. Because when we're talking about Sauce Gardner and we go through this mock draft, well, it may be because he may be the best player available, or it may be because he is the player that Lovie Smith wants. We just don't know with Aiden Hutchinson. And I have seen some draft boards where he's sliding down, right? And I think some of these drafts are just ridiculous. People make up reasons to believe anything that they want. With that being said, it's difficult to determine and for me to give an answer on whether or not I think Houston should take him over a player that I think will be there, over a player that I think will, you may be able to find an edge rusher later in this draft that can be effective as well. But are you going to be able to find a corner that has shown he can be locked down in man coverage and that can be very effective in zone coverage? It's very difficult to do in the NFL. So it's hard to say. I don't know where Houston has him on their draft board. And him giving off J.J. Watt vibes does not hurt it as well, right? Like when you look at Aiden Hutchinson, you can Photoshop 99 on Aiden Hutchinson. Some folks wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, and I think if Hutchinson is there at 3, I can see the Houston Texans drafting him only because, just like in the first segment, we talked about how Lovie Smith said he did not have the cornerbacks in order to run his defense. Remember, at the start of the NFL Combine, he did say that the defensive line is the engine to his defense. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But, John, once again, another scenario I'm throwing out there. Let's say, for example, if the Houston Texans are sitting at 3 and both Sauce and Hutchinson are there, who do you take? I'm going to go off the limb and say I will prefer Sauce only because Hutchinson has a lot of promise, but my only concern about Hutchinson is, 1, he was a late bloomer. 2, he only had one good year, one dominating year in college. Of course, that was last year at Michigan, versus when you look at a guy like Sauce, he has been a lockdown corner ever since stepping into the door of Cincinnati. And I just think, when you talk about the importance of the Houston Texans draft in 2022, they have to rely more on what you know, what is out there on film versus what could possibly be.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's difficult for me to go against what I've been saying. That I just think, man, I just think Sauce has star potential, and I do think the same with Hutchinson. By the way, there's no doubt about it. But when you scan this draft, how many edge rushers can you bring in? Can you draft if you're Houston that can provide you with what you need on the defensive line? Compare that to the cornerbacks. I don't know if that number weighs out evenly. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode, a Monday edition of the Locked On Texans podcast. Make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube page at Locked On Texans. Like us on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. And make sure you're following us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, subscribe again. Tell your cousin that go to Ebenezer Baptist Church that put us on the prayer list. And let everybody in the choir in the sanctuary know to follow us at Locked On Texans. Subscribe on YouTube.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody Davis. Let me turn my new Texans hat around so everybody can see, you know what I'm saying? You know,
fresh
just
out the
got
box.
it. Exactly, you know, I think my signature is having my snapback on, so you know, I got the snapback on because of that, but But as always, I'm your host, Cody Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody CotyDavis_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.